was 2006 against the Lions. We're reminiscing in the general chat. This was a fun chat to follow. 2006 against the Lions. God damn, man. That was a long time. Leon Washington scored a touchdown in that game on a pitch, which I remember. Look it up. You'll see the highlights. Also curious, what's the earliest you've left a game because you've just had enough? Preseason doesn't count. Ooh. He mentions the 2018 game against the Bills with Matt Barkley where they lost 41-10. So a fun two-parter here. There was a lot of banter in the general Discord chat about this. I saw the Jets. I saw the Jets beat the Titans a couple years ago with Zach Wilson. I bought tickets with my cousin day of. We went. It was a blast. It was the most fun I've had at a game in a while. I've told this. I used to go to probably about 4 to 6 games a year. I went to every home game except for one in 2015, so I got to see a lot of wins that year. Since then, I basically went to 1 or 2 games a year. I saw them beat Jacksonville, where Eli McGuire and Bilal Powell had long touchdown runs in overtime. I think that was 2017. I saw them lose week 1 to Buffalo with Darnold and Gase. I saw them beat the Titans, and then last year I unfortunately saw them lose to the Bengals, lose to the Pats, and lose to the Pats in New England. So I've really, since 2015, I've seen 2 wins. I've seen them beat Jacksonville with Josh McCown, and I've seen them beat the Titans with Zach Wilson. And in terms of leaving a game early, when I really up through the 2015 season, I refused to leave. I never left a regular season game early, and I sat through some really, really ugly ones. I just didn't do it. I refused to do it. And I would drive my dad and uncle insane until I got old enough to drive myself, and then I would just have to deal with it in my own way. Actually, I will say this year in the Bengals game, we probably left with like 5 or 6 minutes left because I had to get a ride from someone else. It was like Flacco. The game was over. We left with like 5 or 6 minutes left and listened to the rest of the game in the car, and then I watched the playback on it. So it was it's not something I did ever really growing up, although the game that you mentioned, man, I remember that game. That was one of those like dark moments. I talked a little bit about this with Dan in the Buck to Trend episode where I was like, why am I covering this team? Like, why am I? Right. It's hard enough rooting for them. Why am I going to go write a 100-word game recap about losing 41-10 to Matt Barkley? I know myself, and I can already feel I'm going to cave and end up going week 1 and week 3. And then I think we're leading towards doing our tailgate for the Jets-Giants game, which is actually a Giants home game, but could make it that much more fun. I'm going to end up at like 5 or 6 games this year is the short of what I'm saying. So what about you, CR?
So the last win I saw was November 2nd of the 2017 season. Jets Dance to Anything, Thursday Night Football against the Bills. That is the last win I went to at the stadium. The Jets won that game 34-21 to improve their record to 4-5. 2017 is kind of a weird year in Jets history, right? Because McCown wasn't bad, but he got hurt. Bryce Petty was awful. You know, you still had Bowles here, so the defense had a pulse sometimes. But that game was fun because, you know, they wore those weird color rush green uniforms, and then during the break, they were jumping around dancing.
The dancing Jets, that was like the meme.
Yeah,
Darren Lee and everybody.
Yep, Jets Dance to Anything. That was the last. That's really sad that was the last win I was at. But I mean,
damn, man, that's crazy. That's crazy,
right?
Yeah.
But to put it in context, right? From 2014 to 2017, so that same year, I worked every Sunday at Bleacher Report, so I couldn't go to any Sunday games anymore. Then that's why that game Thursday I went, and then 2018. And 19, I traveled almost every week for college football, and I'd fly home on Sundays. I mean, remember one of the watch parties at Willie McBride's?
Yes. Jets, Jags, Darnold.
I literally got off the plane and went to that watch party on like 3 hours of sleep. So really couldn't go to any weekend games in 18 and 19. 20 was COVID. And then 21, oh my God, they were so bad. You couldn't.
No.
Right? There's just no. And then you and I started doing Badlands consistently post-game because we were on number 1 pick Trevor Lawrence watch. And then 2022 is when I started doing Jets post-game, pre- and post-game from World Trade Center. So So yeah, I've talked about this a lot. I don't get to go to a lot of games anymore. Growing up, my dad and uncle had season tickets, so I'd go to at least one preseason and one regular season game every year because they each had a ticket. So they do like the ticket swap. So yeah, it's crazy though that it's been that long. It's crazy. Hopefully one day we do some kind of SMY pregame at the stadium. And I'll actually see the Jets win in person again. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't trade what I do to go see games. I'm very lucky that I get to be a part of the coverage now. But yeah, leaving early, that's a good one. I'm like you. I don't really remember, like preseason,
Of course.
we would always leave early
Yep.
because we had a decent drive to MetLife from upstate New York. I wasn't like up in Buffalo, but we had a decent drive. So preseason, we'd usually leave at the end of the third quarter, I feel like. And also nobody was in. Nobody was playing anymore. Regular season, though, you just kind of wrote it out. I mean, I could think all the way back to going to Jets-Chiefs in the soaking rain. I don't even know what year it was. I feel like Trent Green was definitely playing. That's like, God, I need to know what year this was now. Trent Green was on the Chiefs from 2001 to 2006. It probably... And the Jets were bad the year I went, and the Chiefs were bad too.
2003 or 2005 then, because those were the
Had
two
to be.
years in there
Yes.
that they were bad.
So one of those years I went to Jets Chiefs and just stayed in the pouring rain. That'll always stick with me.
Oh, man. I've sat through, the first Jet game I ever went to when I was a kid, they lost to the Colts 9-6, and I only remember cheering at them downing punts, and that was like a good pre-sample of what I could be dealing with, although I have got to go to some memorable games. I was at Jets Seahawks when